we structure our text response essays? In our first body paragraph, we really need to define the keywords in the prompt and provide examples for them. This is an optional structure. There are many different ways you can structure your arguments. Um, but if we define, say, ambition, then we spend this body paragraph talking about ambition and how it's seen in the text. How is it expressed in different ways through different characters, and so on and so forth. This is our most simple idea, and then we're going to elevate it just that little bit further. So in paragraph 2, we might explore the causes for the prompt statement and how these are seen in the text. And we'll look at examples of this in a second, guys. In our third body paragraph, we may discuss the consequences of what the prompt suggests and the significance of these. So these can be our implications. Alternatively, here's another structure. We might have our paragraph 1 based around a cause of conflict in the text. Then we might explore the response for the prompt statement and how these are seen in the text, similarly to paragraph 1 in the other structure. And then we might discuss the effect of what the prompt suggests, and the conflict and the significance of these. So looking at examples to really make this clear what we're talking about, we're going to use Harry Potter because everyone knows Harry Potter, and obviously the texts that you guys study are different. So let's see, have a look at this prompt. Friendship is more important than magic in Harry Potter. To what extent do you agree? So in our first body paragraph, we might be really defining friendship and magic by talking about where do we see these expressed in the text and how are they differently expressed. So what different kinds of friendship and magic are there? Then, as we're exploring the causes for the prompt statement, we might talk about what causes friendship and what causes magic, because that's appropriate for this prompt. And lastly, what are the consequences of friendship and what are the consequences of magic? Are they good? Are they bad? And how so? Simple. Looking at essay structure for text response. Introductions, we do have pretty much a set structure for most things in English, right, guys? So introductions are where structure is pretty important because this is the first thing that your assessor is going to read. So your introduction and conclusion, quite important. This is going to leave a lasting impression on your assessor, both your intro and conclusion. So we know that we start with some kind of topic sentence as well in introduction. Our first sentence just meaning our topic sentence, but this is going to be about the text and the world of the text. So we will start with some contextual information, potentially mentioning the time period of the text, the text type, and the second half of our sentence, after we've introduced the title and the author, might go in to give some information about the world of the text, but in relation to our prompt. So, for example, Mary Shelley challenges the bounds of reverie in her novel Frankenstein. We have that quote for stylistic effect, so that's okay to include because that doesn't need to be analyzed. In her novel Frankenstein, as she describes Frankenstein, the book, as a hideous progeny in the text's preface, signaling the significance of creation in the novel. So see how that second half of the sentence, probably referring to the ideas of the prompt, the significance of creation. We think that's what the prompt may be about. And we do not mention genres of the text unless we will be discussing them. So I don't care if your film is a film noir genre, unless you will be talking about the filmic devices that belong to that genre. Don't include any relevant information in your introduction. Anything you include is expected to be discussed. So that's why it's good to keep these short and very clear. And don't give contextual information about the background or history of the author. There has to be nothing outside of the text. Then we'll have 2 to 3 signpost sentences. This will be our contention, so our interpretation or response to the prompt, and kind of elaborating on that contention and summarizing all of our arguments or topic sentences. Here, because this is the structure we have to follow, you can really see the importance of planning. How are we going to write this summary of our arguments if we don't have our arguments yet? And how do we make sure that they all relate to each other and that they fully address the prompt? So we must plan. And then we have a linking sentence. And this should be some kind of overarching views and values connection. For example, we can use a sentence starter to help us. In this way, Shelley suggests that something to do with creation and how it's important and why views and value statement. Going into our body paragraphs, all of our topic sentences, there are arguments. Um, and then every piece of evidence and accompanying analysis, because remembering they have to go together and we must have quotes for every piece of evidence we introduce, they're kind of our sub arguments that relate to our main argument. So we do that process for a few times in a body paragraph, and then we have another linking sentence, which is a views and value statement, and it has to go back to our topic. So it has to relate to our topic sentence, but it goes further than that and gives, a views and value statement. Avoid mentioning characters in the last half of your views and value statements. That will make them not very overarching views and value statements at all. For example, the warmth and compassion of women is reflected in the creature, as Shelley suggests that when unsullied, not ruined by men, humans are intrinsically compassionate and altruistic, the best qualities of mankind. A great example. A very detailed example doesn't mention characters in the second half. There, we want it to be general because the author is making a statement about big groups, about people as a whole, oftentimes. And then this other example, in this way, the creature's treatment highlights society's ignorance and immorality in favoring appearance over compassion. Now, this is an example of this idea of the creature is not in our second half of our sentence, which is great. And we are using that example to then, in the second half of our sentence, make a comment on society's ignorance and immorality. Great example. Looking at conclusions. So we want a first sentence that's maybe potentially similar to the first sentence of the essay that might touch on context a little bit, but the key thing to have here is some kind of our restated contention. But we might have an introductory sentence that also goes into our topic of the essay. So we might go and say, Shelley explores the complexity of human morality in Frankenstein, and it is through the creature that Shelley considers they may possess both good and evil. So we see that contextual information that really helps to elevate our sentence, but the key thing here is that we have our restated contention of that idea of good and evil. Or we can have that contextual sentence summarizing, um, the idea of the essay, and then go into our contention. And then, obviously, that relates to that. Spend 1 to 2 sentences quickly summarizing. Nothing new. It's really similar to our introduction. And again, similar to our introduction, we need to link back to views and values. And here we want a really strong statement that summarizes and acts as a overarching views and values statement for your entire piece. And you want this to be, as complex as possible if you can get a really good idea. For example, we might use some very good words like ultimately or overall to aid us, like, therefore, Shelley ultimately suggests that. And here we see an example. Therefore, both authors present the rigid ideology as being insular and yielding the potential to diminish communities. Um, but essentially, there are some questions you can raise if you struggle to come up with these overarching views and value statements. For example, what is the author saying about the real world? What did they endorse, agree with, or suggest? And what did they condemn or criticize? What did they say about the human condition? So, just the quality of being human in a community or in a society. What is their main message? Hopefully, when you write a conclusion and you get into elevating and restating your contention and covering those ideas, you get an idea for a views and values statement just in mind, just arising from that. But if not, that's a strategy you may follow, raising those questions to aid you. Now, we know we need to have a contention or an interpretation. This is our overall argument in response to the prompt, or it's the umbrella stance incorporating all of our sub-arguments. So again, showing that relation, all of our sub-arguments or topic sentences relate to our contention. And if we look at our contention, it covers all of the ideas that our topic sentences have. Very straightforward, but it does mean we need to be able to write good contentions and strong arguments. Some essay structure things not to do, and obviously some of these I've already had a chat to you guys about, but one is never just restating the prompt in your own words. Try not to use the same language as, is in the prompt. Refer to ideas without referring to the prompt directly. This is really important to make our vocabulary a lot better and show that we understand what the prompt includes and refers to. Never fully agreeing or disagreeing with the prompt. We had a chat about how you have to include the other point of view. So for that reason, we will always have one body paragraph that simply explores the other point of view. And using words like however or whilst or other linking words to help us in our writing and having that direct direction, really helpful in English. We have other words like overall, ultimately. It's really helpful, and these however whilst will help you to bring in different distinct ideas. Here is some help for you guys to help you with writing contention. So we see a couple of prompts here and a contention written for them, and we can have a look at how they address the prompts. Skrinetsky's poetry suggests that memory is as much a source of pleasure as of pain. Discuss. It's saying memory is just as bad as it's good. It brings a lot of suffering to characters. That's what our prompt is saying, and that's what we need to be able to discuss and reflect in our contention. So we might say, whilst old or new world suggests that memory brings individuals both pleasure and pain, Skrinetsky ultimately posits that such sensations are essential to the shaping of one's character. So we see that by introducing that whilst and that ultimately posits, we are able to address both sides of the perspective. So while we predominantly disagree with the prompt and we argue that memory is essential to shaping individual identity and character, we need to reflect the opposing perspective. So we also have those linking words like whilst and ultimately to reflect that idea that it can bring individuals both pleasure and pain. So our agreeing aspect of the prompt. And then we have a contention that shows both points of view. Another example, the world of Shelley's novel is characterized by injustice and ingratitude. To what extent do you agree? So here we have this example, whilst Shelley portrays a society plagued by prejudice and thus injustice. So our, again, aspect of the prompt that we're agreeing with, and then we go on to disagree. She also ruminates on the value of pure pursuits such as poetic justice and thankfulness within individuals detached from society. So we really introduce the other side of our perspective, and we say there's other things than just injustice or ingratitude present in the world of the text. Hopefully finding this helpful, and you can really see how those sentence starters or linking words can really help you stay on track and write an all-rounded contention. Now, with our topic sentences and concluding sentences, we're trying to start and end our body paragraph in different places, and hence I've used this kind of funny elevated text. So our topic sentences are essentially saying This is a key idea. And then the body of our body paragraph, the middle, which is the evidence and analyses. It's all about talking. Here's how I know this idea is significant. Here is the proof or justification for my topic sentence or argument. And then at the end, we're going into this is what the author says about this key idea. So that this from the topic sentence, our argument, is mentioned again, but we go further than that into an overarching views and values statement. So let's have a look at this example here. Filled with innuendo, Don's audacious carnal love poetry openly focuses on the fleeting joy of physical desire and the struggle to attain it. This is our topic sentences. And our concluding sentence says, therefore, Don explores the fleeting joy of erotic desire, but maintains that there is a genuine struggle to maintain a relationship founded solely on physical attraction. So we see how the conclusion sentence does link back into the idea of erotic desire and fleeting joy, but then it goes further than that to make a commentary on relationships founded on physical attraction. So we can see how we start and end in different places. Hopefully making a lot of sense, guys. Um, Here are some important things to do with our body paragraphs. We must have a clear focus, very obvious in our topic sentence. So the assessor should be able to read your introduction, your conclusion, as well as your topic sentences and know what you're trying to communicate and what your distinct idea is. For that reason, no character names, no quotes in our topic sentences. It's just our idea. Our sub-argument mini responses to different aspects of the prompt. And you need to include reasoned evidence to justify your sub-argument. So, writing as though you are explaining yourself to someone who knows the text well, so they don't need those descriptions and summaries of what's happening in the plot and what is this evidence talking about. They only want your analysis. So they can't think for themselves. They've, read a text just for fun and they haven't formed any distinct analytical ideas, and you're trying to tell them a bunch of interesting analytical ideas, essentially, is what you're doing. So avoiding that summary and description. Then using quotes and integrating them with your discussion. Quotes have to be in your sentences and not amongst them. Um, they need to be integrated really smoothly, and we can practice different sentence structures to help with that as well. Um, and we can even interchange. We might start a sentence by analyzing and then adding the evidence to that sentence after we've already included some analytical idea. All ideas to help you. Also, varying quote lengths is a good way to keep it interesting and keep it flowing nicely. And also, commenting on authorial choices. Remembering that everything in the text is supposed to be a deliberate choice that the author has made to create some kind of effect or some sort of commentary. And if you think that way, your analysis will really be better off, because we will always comment and discuss everything in great depth. So not to say that, you know how we have a views and values statement at the very end of a body paragraph, and it's sort of overarching and links back to our topic sentences. But where we want to slow down, we have a good piece of evidence, we want to slow down and analyze it just that little bit further. It's needless to say, you can include more views and values ideas or authorial intent ideas in the body of your essay as part of your analysis. Um, just make sure it's appropriate to your evidence, and aim to do that, not just only in your linking sentence, but probably at least one more other time per body paragraph. Now, our conclusions, they need to consolidate our arguments rather than summarizing them. So we want our restated contention, essentially in our conclusion, to be more complex than it was in the introduction. And this should not be difficult, because we've spent the whole essay, discussing all of these ideas, and it should be more complex and more developed by now. Therefore, consolidated. So always try to comment on the author's intention and message overall, answering the prompt, and link to the text as a whole and to broader societal concerns that the author is making commentary on. Avoid, however, rewording your topic sentences or rewording your contention. And don't bring up new evidence, though you can have those well-placed quotes for stylistic effect that I mentioned.